Nigel.
Hello.
Hello again. Do you fancy having another go with this thing?
Yeah.
Hopefully
this
time. You had a
time.
go, and
Yeah.
it was a bit of a, you were happy.
Well, I was happy,
You were
but I
happy.
want to make
everyone
you
at home was
happy this time.
Well, anything would make me happy after Torchy. So,
Right.
how's about you give the button another press?
Give the button a press.
and
Here
we'll see
goes.
what we come up with.
It's pressed.
Press anything other than Torchy, please. Well, I think we've come up trumps today because this is not only an episode of a much better show, it's an episode of a show that our own Mr. Richard James not only starred in, but guest starred in this episode. He's got 2 roles in one. Here we go with Space Precinct's Predator and Prey.
Great.
What more can we say?
So he was a puppet all along?
He's always been a puppet, yes. That's why we love him.
Thought so.
So, it's time to welcome back to the Randomiser. It's Space Precinct with a rather interesting episode to talk about, I think, because you may or may not know that...
Hi,
hello.
Chris. Sorry,
Hello.
I was...
What, are we cutting here now?
No, I was just outside. I'm sure I heard a familiar theme tune.
Yes, you did.
I thought
now,
I just-
how did you... What, you just...
Well, I thought I'd pop in
You
and...
just happened to be in the area, did you? You happened to be just over there, did you?
Yeah, I thought I'd just
You
drop
just
over.
come in just totally random,
It's Predator and Prey.
and this involves you how?
Well, I, of course, not only played famously Officer Orin, but also Enil Kamada, one of the Mechie
I
race.
see, you've kept that quiet. In this episode, you mean, yes.
This very episode.
Oh dear. And these wonderful extras, we start with... what, is this the taunt? This is the taunt, because it's there on the wall, isn't it? Yes. So many wonderful extras, so many wonderful hairdos as well.
Now, this was Pam Meager, I think, who was the head of makeup, came up with the wonderful idea of using potato prints
Right.
on people's faces.
That's interesting then, because there's a lot of prints on people's faces, yes. It's something that always struck me as quite unusual. Also, what is that guy wearing in the background? Was he naked except for like an ostrich feather or something? What was that?
Now, there's a shot coming up that makes no sense at all. Would you like me to point it out?
Yes, please.
It's of me as Enil Kamada, not there, which is quite a striking shot. Where I just seem to be staring into the middle distance for no apparent reason.
Okay. Yeah, there's that. Oh dear, the 90s. The future as portrayed by the 90s.
Clearly got my eye on her.
Yes. This lady in the Taunt Club has caught the eye of Mr. Bald Man in Black Cloak, who's letting himself into the back room.
Access all areas.
Of course, yes. Very important. And we're coming up on what I feel is still rather an atmospheric and creepy scene here. Due in no small part to your presence, of course.
Kind of you to say so.
Freeze! Hold it right there. I said freeze! Now put your hands up where I can see them.
It's even so many years later, it's still so creepy and so sinister. So I'd love to know the process by which you were offered this role. Was it just, it came up in the script and like, oh, Richard is perfect for that? Or did you sort of ask, is there anything else I can be doing? I know you'd previously done a couple of other creons along the way.
Had they come beforehand? I can't remember.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think by now I'd obviously built up, rather like David Quilter, a bit of a reputation for having a go at anything. And I think, yeah, this came up, directed by Sidney Hayers, and it was offered to me, so I didn't go scouting for it.
Brilliant.
But I think I was just approached one day and told that there was a rather nice part in the next script and would I like to do it? And as there was no dialogue involved, I said, yes, I'd love to do
Yes.
it. No lines to learn.
And no redubbing, crucially.
That's right.
So this poor young lady has come to an unfortunate end. And this guy, this is Rolf Saxon, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely Rolf Saxon.
Yeah, who at the time, the only thing I had seen him in when this was first aired, he was in a pizza commercial around this time. I don't want to say what brand it was. I suspect it might have been Chicago Town. I have searched for it on YouTube, but I can't find it. Yes, he's now the American narrator of the Teletubbies, I found out the other day.
I had no idea.
Yes.
And also, I think in one of the latest Mission Impossible movies, having been in one of the previous Mission Impossible.
Probably, yeah. Oh, nighttime Demeter footage always looks gorgeous.
She was with the 79th, working undercover.
You better sense it back.
Now, I was also very pleased to accept the part of Kamada because It was much earlier starts than when I was playing Orin because of the makeup, of course, which was much more complex. So they laid on a car for me.
Oh, very nice.
So I was picked up every morning and taken to Pinewood Studios.
Weren't you often carpooling with Lou Hirsch here?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Hey, Orin.
It is quite surprising considering you're playing the guest villain in this episode. You then get a fairly prominent subplot with Orin as well.
It's a great showreel for me. If only you could
Yes.
see my face in either of the parts.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got a lovely subplot, as you say, with the Zwellin coming up and Kamada.
A peeper. I don't believe it.
Believe it. Everyone else is on a homicide. Now get going. The lady sounded pretty upset.
This is one of the occasional Space Precinct storylines that I find quite uncomfortable
Yes.
to watch, a little distasteful, in that we are now investigating a voyeur, essentially, who's been prying on a beautiful Creon lady. How would you explain that to your children watching this on a Saturday night?
Being a kid watching this first time, I have to say a lot of that kind of stuff went over my head. Watching it now as an adult, there is a lot in this show that is tonally inappropriate for a family audience. I don't know if that was part of the appeal back in the day. It was sort of, oh, this is a slightly more grown-up thing. Or if it was part of the reason that the show struggled at times to find an audience.
Yeah, I think so. And yet it would have been a simple matter just to trim those little lines of dialogue. I mean, there's one episode where Haldane's mentioning alien porn, for example.
Oh, yeah. Is that Smelter Skelter? They find them on the ship, yeah. Flesh man.
Right, I mean...
Tisk, tisk.
Oh, how sweet. And what a crock.
Alrighty, now that we've gone through the introductions, why don't you show us the crime scene?
And this is something as well that I've always found interesting with this show is it's the 88th Precinct, Demeter City, but they also seem to handle things that affected all of Altor, and yet we see in this episode there are other precincts protecting we know not what.
Yeah, true.
And they've come to Demeter anyway, so...
Yes, not quite thought through.
No.
You know this guy?
Oh, yeah. You've seen him?
Now, I think the incongruous shot where I was told just to stand and look off camera, not really understanding what the intent was behind the shot, and I think you can see...
Sounds like it might be a serial killer.
Was it just meant as a pickup shot to be dropped in anywhere?
Yes, exactly right. And I think it comes as Rolf Saxon sees me in a moment.
Tina took her up too.
Not really.
Do it anyway.
It's also, I think, rare for this show to have another American guest actor. I'm assuming he is either American or Canadian.
Obviously, I didn't get here in time, okay?
It's a lovely performance, too.
It is.
Again, it seems so strange to me as a kid because all I knew him was as the pizza guy. Now suddenly he's in this grown-up show, but... and manhandling a poor body in the background.
And also, Brogan isn't being particularly sensitive here, considering that he's just lost his partner, Rolf Saxon, in a horrific way.
And I think we're about to come up with Castle on the Star Trek trope. Sees the dead body. How does she know her?
Sorry, kiddo.
They were at the academy together.
Of course they were.
Took senses something from Rolf Saxon.
Nice guy.
Chloe Vincent.
Thereby opening the door to a whole series of Space Precinct Academy novelizations.
Yes, indeed.
Sorry, ladies, we're closed.
Here we go. It's as he looks in the mirror, there behind him is Mr. Potato Head, just standing,
Oh, right.
staring into the middle
Just
distance.
Clearly enjoying nothing that he's looking at, yes. Okay, yes, suddenly the place is a lot more crowded.
Yes, it's very odd.
Interesting, yeah.
So obviously filmed as part of the same action as those first scenes.
Yeah. I take it there's no like mementos or anything from this episode specifically that you'd have kept, or aside from any paperwork maybe?
No, I don't think I even have a call sheet from Predator and Prey.
Did you see him?
I can't say anything because my mouth doesn't move.
I was going to say, and I don't have a name. Is there any point where you can look at an extra like there or milling around in background and think, I can tell who was in that costume?
Or not at this distance, I'm afraid, in time, no.
There are some folks out there who probably can.
I'm sure there are. I mean, I remember all this so clearly. I remember shooting this scene.
Yeah?
Yeah. We're about to see Lee Tinkler, I think, is playing the Creon woman.
And she would have... Was she the Alicia monster?
Yes, she was. And there we are standing in front of, the full-size police cruiser.
Yes, you got to ride in that a few times, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a lovely thing. And now we start ramping up the comedy.
Yes, indeed. I was also thinking there, as we're introduced to the young lady there, it was a running thing with Creon young ladies that their eyes were bigger, and as they got older, their eyes shrunk.
Yeah.
So it was quite sweet.
You'd have to talk to Gary Pollard about that, I think. He designed a lot of the masks.
Yeah, what a guy.
Yeah, what a guy. Of course, this is not me about to be pulled into the dumpster. This was Glenn Marks in a rubber stunt mask.
Oh, brilliant. So were you just not allowed to do a stunt, even though it was quite small?
That's me, of course. Yes, I think it was preferred that the stuntman did it.
Okay. I imagine Glenn was like the go-to stunt person, because I know he did some falls in like Time to Kill and others.
And what's the episode where we're abseiling in from the ceiling as well?
Oh, Illegal?
Is it?
I think so, yeah.
That was him too.
Yes. I've got to say as well, in HD AI upscale, the series looks gorgeous now.
Doesn't it?
It's like a layer of dirt that's been on there for decades has been just ripped off.
Absolutely right.
And the effects stuff in particular look great.
You were there too? Did you see anything?
Just a jerk masquerading as a police lieutenant, sir.
Haldane, the man you're...
Lovely.
Yes, he's ever the professional, is our Haldane. I'm also wondering if this is shot slightly darker than usual to sort of up the tension a bit.
Yeah.
And if you people would do your job, like checking the security recordings of the taunt, then you'd see him too.
Well, as a matter of fact,
They're like children, aren't they?
the SA unit is reviewing the recordings right now.
Yes, is there anything else you want to tell us about how to do our job?
Go and pick on slow-mo.
Professionals act like it.
Ah, lovely Jerome Willis.
Your captain tells me I can expect your full cooperation.
He seemed always the most professional of all of us, actually. We held him in great regard and respect throughout the whole filming process.
Captain, we've got the autopsy report in 20 minutes.
There he is. Our man Carson.
None found.
And when I was first watching the show, this would have been shown as episode 4. So that was his introduction on the BBC at least. So not that he really got introduced properly at any point, but...
Very busy actor, I remember. Was always having to be let go early during the day to get to the RSC to play Julius Caesar or something.
What are you telling me? Lieutenant Walker's partner lost her will to live?
I can believe that.
I imagine it was something, so almost like a checklist. We've got to have some friction, some interpersonal problems.
Yeah. Now, the writer whose name I didn't see there.
I did.
Sagan?
Yes.
Nicholas
Sagan. Yeah.
I don't think wrote any others for the series.
No.
Which is interesting, because this, I think, is quite a successful episode.
I am not the only one around here who puts in long hours.
Whatever makes you feel good, Slow-Mo.
And this was around the point, probably like 2 or 3 episodes after Mary Woodvine was allowed to use her own voice.
Exactly right. You can tell, can't you?
It helps enormously.
Doesn't it?
Thanks, Slow-Mo.
Later.
Ah, a piece of paper that we don't even use today in offices.
Fantastic. Now he's got to go and upload a gigabyte or whatever it was he used to do.
For stress.
Stress? Oh, maybe that explains it. Walker's mind was really muddled when I read him at the club. Like a book where the letters kept changing.
What do you think of the masks?
I think for the most part they hold up really well. I can't even sense the obvious fact that there was a puppeteer with a radio control, working it all off screen. There just comes a point, and I think we're at it now, where all the movements become so fluid. It's one unified performance. And that's for all of the main alien characters. And quite a few of the guest ones as well, to be fair.
Mean and moody.
Oh, got to go home to my family and I've got to talk to them. And,
Killed earlier tonight at the Taunt, the new downtown hotspot. Late night news has learned.
Now, I think this scene coming up was actually the first scene I shot as Commander.
Ah, the nightmare scene.
Because I remember, I think I had poles in the cape to hold out so that the cape kind of ballooned to my sides. And I remember going down on my knees and using them like walking sticks, for a joke, of course.
Of course.
And Alan Hume, who I think had worked on Empire Strikes Back, said, oh, it's my mate Yoda.
Did you know Chloe Vincent?
She was a classmate of James.
Oh, dear.
Get back on it.
Everyone's always a classmate of somebody's in these shows.
Yeah.
And luckily, one of the things in this episode's favour is I don't think there's too much Brogan family stuff in this.
You know the rules. All undocumented.
Wayne!
There he is, Captain Scarlet.
Have the facilities.
Thanks a lot.
But not yet, of course.
No.
There's nothing we can do.
And it's strange how so many other actors got their voices dubbed in this show, and yet every time pretty much he appears, he's kept his own voice.
Will you give me that? Come on, give me that.
And this is quite a sweet creature as well. Nice little subplot of this Zwellin that Orin and Romek have found.
Come on.
Yes, it's lovely. As Rob Thurtle, who was in the suit there, isn't here, perhaps I could be permitted to tell his story.
Please do, yes.
So whenever we had new guest aliens, they would often be paraded down to Jerry's office to show him, and he would ask various questions about, how did we hear and how are we seeing and things like that. And so sure enough, when Rob put the Zwellin costume on for the first time, he was taken down to Jerry's office. And of course, Rob being Rob, he got up to sort of ape-like antics on the desk and rolling around on the floor. And Jerry was very impressed, as you might imagine, and then said, so what are you seeing out of?
And what was he seeing out of?
His own eyes.
Oh, okay.
He said, these are my eyes, Jerry. Yeah.
It's amazing how, aside from the face, she's dreamt him pretty much as he is.
You can't quite see, but there's also etched on that black spandex leotard a skeleton, ribs and spine and so on.
Oh, right. Oh, that's an interesting touch.
Not very apparent.
No.
Oh, wow. That was a bad one.
Nightmare?
I imagine if this were done today, that would be played up a bit more.
Nothing. Your mother just had a bad dream.
Because the costume is quite simple, and 95% of what makes it work is your performance, particularly the eyes. But it's also great that it's so simple because you can be Commander for Halloween if you were mad enough to dress up as a Space Precinct character for Halloween.
But it's a little on the nose, isn't it? The black cape with the high collar.
Yes.
It screams baddie, doesn't it?
We're looking for a serial killer in this bar. Where is he? Oh, that guy over there doesn't look a bit strange.
Awful. Somehow I had the feeling it's that guy who's been killing all those women.
Somehow I had the feeling. He's doing a lot of work there, isn't it, that line?
It's a way to make it all about yourself, Sally. Also some nice sinister music in this episode as well. There you are.
So Walker did see someone.
Slow-mo?
I have cross-linked with interplanetary. Species unidentified.
Oh, and I think we get to see Officer Orin in his civvies at some point.
Yes.
And I'm sure I've seen his jacket that he wears for sale.
Prop masters or similar, yes, I've seen that.
No.
Yes, they have a lot of nurse, ambulance drivers, paramedics and so on costumes.
What?
Your request was to scan all files within the last...
I mean, these scenes, as you can imagine, were an absolute hoot to film.
Yes.
You're kidding. Let me see the file.
Even taking into account the difficulties of working in a mask you can't see and you can't hear. I mean, the antics we get up to here, it was just so much fun.
And it's surprising considering how much with other shows, I'm like, oh, we're doing a comedy subplot. Oh, okay, I'll put the kettle on. I'm not interested in this. Orin and Romek stuff, I have a lot of time for. And particularly the Zwellin stuff is so silly.
Yes.
But it works.
It does work. And what's interesting, we sort of end up playing the roles that we were always destined to play, even though it was resisted to begin with. So there was a scene in Double Duty that Tom Watt and I, when he was Beazle, did as Officer Orin and Officer Beazle in Podley's office. And as we were dismissed, we sort of did a Laurel and Hardy gag of bumping into each other and trying to get out the door at the same time. And then we carried on shooting that day, and we were told we had to go back, and the crew had to carry everything back upstairs to reshoot it because the comedy was considered too broad. And yet just 10 episodes later.
Guy in an alien gorilla suit, yeah.
You know, and it does work.
So are you going to tell us who we're meeting, or is this just going to be your little secret?
That shot, the model shot we just had there as well, is gorgeous stuff. I love the way the cruisers swoop over the camera really low. I think Takeover's got some of that as
You guys
well.
want to knock it off? I'm trying to land this thing in pea soup.
So we're still bickering. And are they going to do that thing that I don't like with this? Yeah, kind of. That thing where it's tried to suggest that it's landing by panning up from the ground. And it's not the only Anderson show that does it, but this one in particular, it never quite comes off to me.
But gull-wing doors actually work.
Yes. That's a bit of a development from UFO where they had to have a stagehand propping them up.
Yeah.
Now, this character approaching us...
Oh, yes.
She has a name.
She does, yes.
Do you remember the name?
I think this is Mag Serple.
Mag Serple. Interesting name.
We're about to meet.
Where does this name come from?
Well, this would be named, she's named for the 2 assistant editors. That's Mags Arnold, and of course the lovely and beautiful and talented Charlotte Serple.
Fantastic. So, what was the thinking behind naming a prostitute after these 2 ladies?
I don't know.
Oh, bless.
I'm Walker. You Max Serple?
Uh-huh.
You got something for us?
Okay.
Serple is actually a very rare Cornish surname, so for it to have survived into the 21st century on distant planet Altor is quite something.
I'm just looking at the face and thinking, I've seen that face in other episodes. Nothing springs to mind, but it happens so often with the guest aliens in this.
Alexa Rosewood, I think, playing Mag Serple.
Okay. What do you want?
So that was the way it sort of developed. As time progressed and more guest characters were introduced, they obviously realised that they needed far more actors to play particularly female aliens. So Lee Tinkler, who I think was only brought on to play the alien in the first episode, was retained or brought back many times. And Alexa Rosewood joined us probably about now.
I've got the name Joanna Burns in my head. Is that another one?
Now, Joanna Burns famously is the most well-paid extra on Space Precinct. She was really only an extra. I don't think she ever said a line. I don't think she ever played any aliens. And yet, partway through the series, she was put on the same contract as the rest of us.
Wow.
Which wasn't bad.
No.
For 1994.
Now this, I'm guessing, is somewhere on the Pinewood backlot.
Yeah.
But there's enough smoke around that you can't really identify any of the buildings.
Pretty cold, I remember. I don't know what time of year this was shot. I'm thinking October for some reason.
Lieutenant?
Oh, there you are. And it's interesting that the killings occur that way rather than with a knife or strangling or something. I think they say that it's the victim loses the will to live or something, that he just sucks the life, which is strange.
Yes. Loses the will to live. Death by boredom.
Yes.
Where? I lost him.
Oh, dear.
I mean, there's no sense of them working together at all on this, is there?
No, it's just every man for himself.
Free!
But at least now Haldane has seen that this guy exists.
Now, I think, if memory serves, I actually do get shot in this.
Position, I'm on my way. Walker, Walker!
I think he fires some bullets. I remember having squibs planted in the costume that exploded.
20 Jupiter Wharf. It's a scrap metal yard.
Have these great tubes and like old turbines are quite effective, aren't they?
Yeah, do you remember if any of this was specially brought in or if it just happened to be in the vicinity?
Can't remember.
Because you didn't do too much filming outside of
Walker, what's your position?
the buildings at Pinewood.
I don't know.
I remember there's a scene on the gantry and I think the witness.
Right, yes.
And obviously there's this stuff.
And Death Watch, I think. We're outside.
Oh, yes. Oh, that lovely landing pad bit with a bunker, yes. So how long did it take for you to, when you were practicing this, to actually have a sense of, all right, that is Kamada? Was it something that came to you once you had the costume on, or?
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, and the mask does an awful lot of work. I knew I looked sinister enough, and it was just about finding some sort of, I suppose you go for stillness, don't you, in these sort of roles? That menacing, brooding stillness, particularly in those scenes where I, creeping up from behind.
Yeah, there is something very, well, as the title says, predator. It was almost like a shark, the eyes and the teeth.
Yeah.
So there was some part of it that was a mask rather than a makeup job?
No, it was rather different to Orin's makeup, which was a mask and was in separate parts. From what I remember of Kamada, it was more traditional sort of latex makeup, whatever they used. I had a skull cap over my own hair, and then Kamada's skull cap was placed on top, and then the rest of the makeup was placed in sections and glued to my face. So it was quite supple. I could, move it very easily.
Yeah, quite expressive.
That's right. Whereas with Orin, of course, there's not a hope.
He said it.
Now I like Ted Shackelford's performance throughout the series, actually, as Brogan.
Yeah, there's never a moment where I feel he's not invested.
No, he was quite humble about it. I remember he did one particular Rob Thurtle again, one particular episode where he had to show a fair bit of emotion about something. I can't remember what now or which episode. And I remember talking to him afterwards, and he just said that it's just soap acting. I thought he was doing himself down a bit.
Yeah.
4 of the victims were killed in the club area, so we shall concentrate our efforts there. Now,
as you in your civvies?
Taken great care, of course, to have the zip on my coat at exactly the same level as the zip on my police jacket.
Right.
I had this thing about Orin always doing his zip up to the same level.
Sergeant.
All right, folks. Here are your assignments.
Because in my mind, and I think it was borne out in later scripts, he lived with his mum. So I had the idea that every morning he put his police jacket on, and she would come up and do his zip up and say, "Come on, you'll catch your death." All of these things the audience will never know, but as an actor, they're kind of little tiny things to hang a character on.
I think it's mentioned in one of the final episodes, and then it got snipped out. I think it's in the two-parter. It's only in either the feature version or the two-part episodic version. I was just wondering as well there, considering he's now got his civvies on, do they actually appear after that?
Humor me.
We'll find out, I guess.
We'll find out. Now, I sent that picture. I had that exact picture for a long time, and I sent it fairly recently to someone who wrote to me and asked for a signed picture.
Oh, brilliant.
So it's now gone.
Oh.
And probably one of you has it somewhere.
Yes. Do let us know, podcast@jerryanderson.com.
Now, there's a prime example. It would have been so much quicker for him to get up and just get the book.
Come on.
That's why they never quite work, I don't think, the Tarns. And also their mind-reading skills are never good enough to solve the plot early.
It's always good enough to get them started, but that's about as far as it can go.
And they were condemned to...
It's as you say, it would be so nice to have had a bit more chance to flesh out the Tarns and the Creons. Because the designs are beautiful, the performances are great.
A host.
And it's just, they may as well be human a lot of the time,
Yes.
which is a shame.
Yes, that's exactly what we ended up feeling like, I think.
The host.
I remember in the early days, Tom Watt and I did a little bit of work of thinking about how would these creatures move, and I seem to remember we both had this thing that we did with our neck at one point during one or
Sustain it.
the first episode, or maybe it was the second that we did with John Glenn, that we had this idea that they would kind of raise and extend their necks to make them feel sort of a bit more reptilian. Okay. And I think it lasted for a scene, and then we realised that no one else was doing it.
No, I imagine the extras in the background couldn't have done it anyway.
No, this is all purely academic. It says here that...
So Took is now in an antique bookshop looking for the history of the Meki, and of course she's found, the first bookshop she's tried, she's found someone who knows all about it. It's either going to be the first bookshop or the very last one on her list.
Yes.
It's always the way in these shows.
Perry, it's Kamada. I know it and you know it.
You have to remember, neither of these actors can see a thing or hear a single thing.
So where would the Tarns be seeing out of? Would it have varied from person to person, or was there like a standard rule?
You can just see under the eyes. They've kind of got like eye bags,
slits,
and there are little slits in there. Now,
men in the shorts are still hanging around. You can't get rid of them.
And Simone Bendix hated this costume.
Yes, they put her in several, shall we say, unflattering costumes in scenes like this.
She felt a little bit objectified, I think, and was rather upset with Sidney Hayers.
No sign of our boy, bro.
Nowadays, of course, she'd be listened to.
Yes.
Bearing up. She's fine.
And as I was talking to Charlotte earlier, we mentioned the music, and she pointed out that there was no music, obviously, when this was being filmed, so everyone is dancing to silence, essentially.
Yeah. And that's usual practice.
Yeah.
Even today on a TV series.
Stay close to its host at all times.
I suppose that's why it's good that the music doesn't really ever hit a sort of stride as such. It's kind of just background noise, really.
And because, of course, they do that because the dialogue has to be clean.
Yeah. But it also does give the impression that all these nightclubs only have one song, and yet they keep bringing the same clientele back every night.
It works.
When I read Walker's mind at the taunt.
Took's in such a hurry, she doesn't listen to old man bookseller.
No.
Haldane is enjoying himself, though.
Yes.
If he were enjoying himself anymore, he'd be on the stage.
Good work, officer. The night isn't over yet.
Snarl.
Stay on my face, Walker. I know my job.
It's also a bit rich coming from him, considering he put his partner in exactly the same position and then watched her. But he's a professional, so it's okay.
So degrading. Don't say anything. I know where you live.
Yeah, I can think of like 2 or 3 other episodes where Simone is in costumes like this. I remember one was the sort of strip-off dress bit, and that's quite demeaning to the character at the end. It doesn't help, I like Rob Youngblood's performance. I think he plays what is written. It doesn't help that Haldane a lot of the time, in particularly moments like this, is written to be Mr. Sneery, Mr.
Yeah.
This is great fun.
Yeah. That's right. Bit of green screen there, I think.
And that too, oddly.
Yes. That doesn't quite work, does it?
It's still a great expression.
What have I done?
And it's at moments like that I'm never clear to what extent he knows that he's sort of occupied and that this is largely down to him. But I guess it works as a nice ad break cliffhanger.
Where's Walker?
He's at the bar.
You've got to get him out of there.
Whoa, slow down, Took. What's the matter?
There isn't time to explain. You've got to trust me. Commander lives inside Walker.
What?
Oh, is this the squid moment?
Oh, I think it might be. There's also a rather lovely moment coming up that happened quite by accident. Is it here or is it in the house? I'll tell you when we get to it.
And this poor extra in his smart business suit, and again with bits stuck to his face, the little prince.
That's right.
Give it up, Commander.
Oh, that's a cool shot.
Yes, I think that made it to the this episode montage.
Yes.
Here we go. 1 and 2.
Oh, there he goes. Again, if you watch the series enough times, you do see the same extras appearing again and again. And there's one coming up later that I want to talk about as well. But now, Mr. Walker has been revealed as the guy who is the host of Kamada.
Come on, you know what you have to do.
So, what are we going to do to get rid of Kamada?
Shoot me! Walker, you don't want me to do that.
Well, you never have a better excuse.
Come on, damn it, shoot! Walker, I can't!
And again, that's quite heavy stuff for a family show.
Really is.
I know there were some scenes reshot for the BBC version. I can't imagine how they would have got around that on the BBC. He has to do it.
And interestingly, of course, from Rolf Saxon, that shot there, we're seeing the top of the soundstage.
Oh yes, I realised that.
He never got out of the ambulance. I was with him the whole time.
What about Kamada?
I don't know. He must have died inside Walker.
Everything's fine and sorted. I'm coming home.
Okay, end of episode.
Yeah. I love as well that they don't really have time to establish a hospital, so we just put a notice board up in the background, stick the word nurses on it, and call it a day.
That's all you need.
He needs Walker in order to survive.
Don't tell us, Haldane. You need a ride home.
Now, I used to love these little kind of secondary sets, the canteen and the corridors.
Yes, the lab.
Gives a real sense of scale and geography to the station house, I
Call
think.
on Com 9.
Were there ever any rooms that would double for other rooms? Because this kind of also looks a bit like where they would have briefings sometimes.
Yes, I think you're right. And I think, of course, a lot of these panels were obviously movable and could be assembled in various different ways to make different size rooms.
Yeah, much like Moonbase Alpha.
Shot on the same stage, of course.
Yes.
It doesn't guarantee that the Mechie dies too.
I love this as well. Oh, now that it's relevant, I've got a bit more information for you.
I was going to tell you earlier, but you ran out.
And I've only waited until now.
It immediately finds a new one.
And again, shots like that are interesting, where you've got a close-up on an alien character and you're getting the expression.
Yeah.
And there as well.
Yeah. I think it's on record somewhere that I think the episode The Enforcer where Rob Thurtle was playing Trask, a Tarn, essentially carrying the episode as the lead alien. And it was that episode that convinced, I think, a lot of the directors and Jerry that the masks and the actors playing the aliens were strong enough to take dramatic moments, comedy moments, and play the whole range of character.
Yeah, you just mentioned that character, and I can immediately think of a couple of moments where he's got some really interesting expressions. I think there's a bit where he's with Podley, and Podley says something, and Trask is like, it's just, ooh.
Yeah.
So, Brogan is home. Everything seems to be taken care of. Commander is definitely dead.
It's got to be dead.
That. Brogan's got a bit of a headache.
I wouldn't worry about the headache. Just have a drink of water, you're fine.
Yes. In the amazing fridge. It was always being shown off on previews of the series. We've got a fridge!
Space fridge.
Yes.
Family. Marty is not dead. He's with you now, Brogan.
Oh no, the Haldane.
What?
Just get out of there now, and he's got...
Brogan doesn't need a reason to get away from his family, though.
Oh, good! I've got to get away.
Oh, darn, I'd love to stay.
And now, we have a reenactment of her nightmare.
Yes. And great music through this scene. She starts to get slightly unsettled. This seems very familiar. And I'm assuming that's the shower I've never seen in any other episode.
Yes, you're right. I don't know what I've been doing there. And of course, I love the way, again, the camera cuts away immediately. You just see the side of my head. And then I'm in. So, this shot coming up. Ah, more shots to the chest.
Yes.
So as I run through the corridor outside, by mistake, I think I went low and the camera went high, but it looks like I'm taking flight, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and I love the moment where he's approaching Sally, and it's almost like there's no sort of human kind of intelligence, it's all animal stuff, and he can't understand, why are they shooting at me? I'm just doing what I normally do, I'm just feeding. But
Slow-mo, meet me at the docking bay airlock.
I don't like this, Brogan.
Can't put slow-mo in danger.
Monster one way or another.
Yes, it wouldn't quite work with slow-mo going around killing people. Although, you know, it'd be a twist we wouldn't see coming.
Absolutely right.
Again, we don't really have a docking bay set, so let's just kind of fudge it.
Just strip everything out, just have the bare walls. That works.
I think it was better later on when they built a model set and you see it full of cruisers. That looks really nice, but obviously you can't do that on a life-size set.
Safety regulations. I require authorization.
I'm a lieutenant, Slow-mo. I authorize it.
Duly logged, Lieutenant Brogan. I am obliged to advise you that such a charge may prove fatal to humans.
Just do it!
Yes, sir. Ready?
Do it!
So Slow-mo's lines were played back live into the studio, having been pre-recorded by Gary Martin, I think.
Oh, so he wasn't doing a Nick Briggs and recording it live on the set?
No.
Go!
Slow-mo, scan your neural net for any new data.
I am the...
And it is, you know, we've got to wrap up the story somewhere. It is a bit sort of, you know, I think that they say, you know, delete button and bye-bye bad guy. It's very simplistic, but it's nice.
Yes, I don't mind it at all.
No.
No. Control.
I mean, I can imagine if you were writing a story like this about a being that enters other people's bodies and consciousnesses and souls, that you would probably think quite early on, I know how to get rid of him. Get him into slow-mo and delete it. And that would be where you're heading throughout the whole writing the script.
Although I suspect possibly if it was made today and they were making it and they could see, oh, we've got a really good villain here, let's just tweak the end and, oh, he lived.
Yeah.
Where did he go? He went off into space.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll come back one day.
Yeah.
But I presume they would never think of bringing back characters from previous episodes.
Did I mention that I love this job?
So that's it. Poor old Commander has been deleted. He didn't even get an action figure, unfortunately.
No, you're right.
No. That would have been fun. Yes. Recreating murdering prostitutes with our little toy set. Someone out there really should do a custom Commander figure, I think.
I checked with the 79.
Now, you just caught sight of Orin and Romek there as the camera panned over. There we are. Now, Lou Hirsch, as you can probably tell from his attitude there, sitting with his hand, hated being in the background of shots like this. I used to quite like it, because I used to think it would kind of gave a life to Orin to, you know, while the rest of the plot is going on, we're still doing our stuff.
I seem to remember you spraying plants or something, and having a little pot plant.
Yes.
Yes.
Another host.
I also wonder about the chairs. They've always looked really uncomfortable to me.
They were.
Bye-bye bad guy.
Yeah.
A delete.
And not as sturdy as you might hope either, I think.
Not gonna work on me. I'm hitting escape. Later, guys.
Hey, Haldane, don't you need a ride?
No.
Again, that must have sounded slightly futuristic to people who weren't so up on computers. Back in the day, we've got a delete button, we've got an escape button. Oh, not everybody has that.
Oh, come on. Don't tell me you two are all spooked by this Kamada thing.
Again, you mentioned sort of real world stuff. This is something I kind of liked. It was not quite a subplot, but it was almost just background business of Haldane needs a lift here and there, or the girls need a lift here and there.
Yeah, it just fleshes out the characters a bit.
I bet the little guy's as happy as a slatworm in milk.
You see, there was no reason for us to be in the background in that previous shot.
No.
We could just have walked in now.
My office.
What did you say? Slapworm? Happy as a slapworm in milk?
You say please.
Not good.
Oh, it's a lovely creature.
Ah, now, is this the extra you were going to...
This is the extra I was going to mention, yes. Do you know his name at all?
I've met him a couple of times at conventions. He was in Star Wars famously, and I think at the Indiana Jones movies. And...
He's in the MI6 ops room in GoldenEye, the first time Judi Dench comes on screen. He's also in the courtroom scene in Protect and Survive. So I'm just wondering if it's meant to be the same character, but probably not. Yeah, it's such an odd amount of attention to give a non-speaking extra, but it's a way to get rid of the Llewellyn. Now, this scene, how many takes did you have of...
That I can't remember, but I do remember Rob being very heavy and it being very uncomfortable in that mask, being hit, you know, because the mask would move and jam into the bridge of my nose, I remember particularly. But, you know, grit your teeth and get on with it.
Yeah, imagine it very hot and uncomfortable.
All right. He's gone for good.
Or is he?
Afraid he might come back in my dreams.
Or maybe in 30 years' time, he'll be sitting and watching this
still
episode.
here.
He won't have nightmares.
Or we're creating some kind of paradox here, some kind of loop.
Just have to figure out a way to keep me awake.
Again, this is the kind of thing that also went over my head as a kid, obviously. It was more like, you know, I prefer ending with the sort of action stuff, really, but that's just me. So there we go, that was Predator and Prey, and where's your name? Where's your name? Come on.
Now, I think
there he is.
Only credited as Kamada and not Orin.
Very unusual. Man number one, implying there was a man number two. Well, that was Predator and Prey, and how do you feel that holds up 30 years later?
I mean, I'm impressed.
Yes, I'm very impressed too. It's always been one of my favourites, partly because of the standout performance of this gentleman beside me here, and also the fact that it's probably just a damn good story in its own right anyway.
I think so. And it's quite effectively shot, I think. And as you say, it looks amazing in sparkly, upscaled AI HD.
Yes, if you don't have access to ITVX Premium, you're missing out with this because it just looks beautiful. So anything else you want to say before we wrap this one up?
Goodbye.
Goodbye. It's goodbye from him.
And goodbye from him.
Goodbye. GTV.